What's up guys, it's San here from Crypto Kiwi. Now in this video I'll be giving you my 2 cents on KiwiSaver, so I'll go over the pros, the cons, and then my own personal views on KiwiSaver as a whole. So recently in the news there was an article about a New Zealand KiwiSaver fund investing into Bitcoin, and this is the first New Zealand KiwiSaver fund to do so. KiwiSaver is a savings scheme initiated by the New Zealand government to help Kiwis afford their first home or be able to get a deposit for their first home, and is also a retirement fund for when someone that works full-time in New Zealand reaches the age of 65. Now KiwiSaver has many incentives, and pretty much anyone that works full-time in New Zealand is eligible for these incentives. So the biggest incentive with KiwiSaver is the 3% mandatory contribution from your employer. So this pretty much means that if you make $1,000 a week, $30 is given to you into your KiwiSaver from your employer from their back pocket. So that's not from your hard-earned money, that's from your employer's own back pocket that they are donating towards your KiwiSaver. Now to get that free money from your employer, that 3% minimum, you also have to put at least 3% minimum from your paycheck before it hits your bank account into your KiwiSaver. So if you make $1,000 a week, your employer will put $30 out of their own back pocket into your KiwiSaver, and $30 from the $1,000 that you've earned will go into your KiwiSaver, or you can also raise that up to 8 or 9% if you like yourself, but the minimum that you have to put in is 3% from yourself, and the legal minimum that your employer has to put if you do use KiwiSaver is 3% from their back pocket. So this is free money from your employer. So if you're making $1,000 a week, like I said, over a year, your employer has to give you 3% of that $1,000 per week, and that adds up to $1,560 per year for free from your employer that's put into your KiwiSaver if you're making $1,000 a week over a year. Not only this, but if you're eligible, the New Zealand government will contribute 50 cents for every dollar that you contribute to your KiwiSaver account, up to a maximum of $520 per year. Most people that are aged between 18 to 65 that work full-time will be eligible for this 50 cents to every dollar donated towards your KiwiSaver from the New Zealand government. Now do keep in mind that if you are doing the 3% out of your own contribution and working full-time over a full year, you should be eligible for the full amount of $520 donation from the government towards your KiwiSaver. So KiwiSaver is pretty much free money from both your employer and the government. It's a bit of a no-brainer, but the only catch is that you do have to donate at least 3% of your pay towards your KiwiSaver fund as well. Now lastly, if you are eligible, you can also get between $5,000 to $20,000 worth of a first home grant from the government when you do use your KiwiSaver to go purchase your first home or get your first house deposit. So once again, this is free money from the government. Now this amount between the $5,000 to $20,000, $5,000 to $20,000 does change depending on your situation. If you are either going in on your KiwiSaver with someone else and it's their first home as well and they're using their KiwiSaver as well, like a partner or a marriage mate or something like that. And also depending if you are building a new house or if you are buying a house that has already been built and lived in beforehand. So the biggest con with KiwiSaver is that you can only use your KiwiSaver funds for a few number of reasons. Now the first one is to help buy your first house. The second is if you're moving permanently overseas. The third is if you're close to bankruptcy. The fourth is if you have a serious illness. And the last one is if you have a life-shortening condition. Apart from these situations, the only other time that you can access your KiwiSaver funds or your money invested into your KiwiSaver fund is when you reach the age of 65 and you are retired. Now the next downfall with KiwiSaver is the fees. Now this is becoming more and more common with media, and articles are coming out talking about the high fees that people are paying on their KiwiSaver funds. And one of the biggest KiwiSaver providers out there are banks. Now both these institutional such as investment companies and banks have been profiting hugely off the KiwiSaver fees. And for most people, KiwiSaver is something that is in the background. It does all the work for them. When their paycheck hits, their employer contributes some money, they themselves contribute their money, and every year the government contributes that $520. Therefore, the person doesn't really look at their KiwiSaver at all. Therefore, again, they don't realize the amount of fees that they are paying to the bank or their investment company just to manage their KiwiSaver funds on their behalf. Overall, I think KiwiSaver is a win-win. First of all, you get free money from your employer, the company or person that you work for. You get free money from the government as well, up to $520 a year into your KiwiSaver. And for both of these, all you have to do is put at least 3% of your own pay towards your KiwiSaver fund as well. 3% isn't a hell of a lot, guys, when you think about it in the terms of your total income. Not only that, but also that first home buyer's grant of between $5,000 to $20,000 is once again a heap of free money from the government. Therefore, it's kind of a no-brainer to use your KiwiSaver when you are going for your first house. Now, I do use KiwiSaver and have had my KiwiSaver for about 5-6 years now, but in saying that, I only contribute the bare minimum to get my employer's contribution and also the $520 from the government for free every year. Personally, I'd rather have my own money to manage my investments myself, and I'd rather invest in things like Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, where most KiwiSaver investment funds will not go near. Overall, guys, KiwiSaver is a no-brainer, but in saying that, KiwiSaver was created to help new home buyers buy their first house in New Zealand as the house prices seem to be ever rising. That was the main reason why KiwiSaver was created. Now, it has helped a lot of people be able to get into their first house. It's almost like a savings scheme where you get free money from the government and the employer, and you can't really touch it yourself no matter what. So it has helped in that instance, but the housing market is continuously rising and it hasn't helped with that at all, and house prices continue to go up throughout New Zealand. Now, my main worry with KiwiSaver is in the next 10, 15, or even 20 years, if the house prices continue to rise, people's KiwiSavers will not be a big enough push to help them with their first deposit on their first home. Therefore, their KiwiSaver won't be of much use if they can never afford a first home, and therefore they can only touch it if they're bankrupt or about to go bankrupt, if they're permanently moving overseas, if they're pretty much dying of some kind of medical condition, or when they finally reach 65 or the retirement age when they fully retire from their working life. The ever-rising cost of getting your first home in New Zealand is becoming a huge issue. According to stats.gov.nz, the Centre for Nationwide Statistics in New Zealand from the government, the median income in New Zealand is $1,016 per week before income tax. After tax, this comes down to $831.31 per week, making the median take-home pay just over $43,200 per year per individual. While the median house in New Zealand currently costs about $730,000, and the median house price in Auckland sits at just over $1 million. The housing market in New Zealand is a huge issue with our economy, and going forward, sadly, I don't see this changing much. I do see house prices continuing to rise over time. Now, of course, this is quite a rant and a very long conversation to be had, and that can be had on my new podcast called Download Crypto. Now, Download Crypto is all about cryptocurrency and finance, and this podcast is now available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify, all the major platforms. You can find the Download Crypto podcast. Link to that will be down in the description below. Now, thanks again for watching, guys. My name is San from Crypto Kiwi. Leave your thoughts down below as always, and I will see you in the next video.